put together the best Volleyball Legends secret guide on YouTube, come from someone who's gotten pro every single season and I'm currently pushing for pro in every game mode, as well as maybe top 100 average, just so I can give you an extra informed opinion on every facet of the game while talking to league players, high ranked players, and my own experience. And I'll be putting the timestamps when I talk about everything, so you can just skip around depending on the position or game mode, or if you're just looking for the best team composition, stuff like that. Hope that helps. And this video is going to be quite a long time to research and put together, so be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and yeah, let's get straight to it. And I'll start with Hidari, since a lot of you are probably curious about him. He is the newest secret spiker added to Volleyball Legends and is a left-handed spiker. His stats look like this, with stats sort of similar to what we see in pure spikers in Sanju and Jinko. And as you can see, his serve and spike being purple. To actually get the purple spike though, you need to spike when the ball is on the left side of your character to get pretty much TSH level spikes, which I think is going to be really overpowered, and that is his ability. Pretty much TSH spikes when he's spiking a ball on his left side. I think getting better at this character is just playing around that gimmick. Glides with him I think are going to be good. Pre-jumps on the right side of the court, since the set would be coming from now your left, and especially delays, because you can just jump up and hold your spike and pretty much always from a standing position, no matter how much you run up to the ball, get a TSH spike. Like, you're literally just holding a TSH spike all the time when you're just spiking from your left side. I mean, it takes a little bit of thinking, and I think his biggest drawback is that, like, you do have to make sure that the ball's on your left side, which might make you a little bit predictable and maybe not super flexible. But with such a strong spike, I think that's a fair drawback to such a strong character. Next is Yogan. He is pretty much a godly style in regards to his stats, but his ability is rage, in that when you perform ground wrecks, bumps, or dives, it charges his rage, where he can then have all max stats for a period of time until he is spiked at draining his bar back to 0, where then he has to refill. Generally, this style is considered a spiker, and focusing on charging your bar early on bumping on serves, diving wrecks, stuff like that to get to rage faster is sort of the play. So like me, I'll literally just like ground set my teammate or ground bump them, or just dive at any possible opportunity, or also be bumping my serves when I don't think I get aces through anything to get to that rage bar, because until you're at that rage bar, your style kind of is bad. Next is Timeskip Hinto, a very fast meta spiker with decent spiking stats. And his ability is that when he gets a run up, it allows him to get a super strong spike. The best thing you can get good at with him is maintaining this bar while moving throughout the court and making sure you don't make sharp movements, because that causes the bar to deplete. But you can kind of make movements, you just can't make sharp movements with him. He's also very good at things like deep crosses, because getting a run up to an antenna and then going for like a deep cross can be insanely hard to defend if it's a purple spike. And you can also jump up with your run up spike and then kind of delay it and then kind of play this like reaction time game, because since it does go so fast, it can be so hard for defenders to react to it. Next is Timeskip Kiamo, pretty much a one trick. He is sort of fast with a good serve stat as well, but other than that, his bread and butter is his overpowered set, and thankfully it's also kind of brainless to use. The biggest thing you're going to have to get good at is setting at a height that your spiker prefers and making sure your sets never really go over. And since his sets stop and they're the only ones to stop, it's kind of easy and almost essential, because one of his biggest strengths is being able to stop a set anywhere. So having your set still go over to the other side is pretty bad sign. And other than that, literally just making sure you get the height of the ball correct as well is another pretty important thing. But that can change from spiker to spiker depending on who you're playing with. Me personally, I just kind of ask people, hey, do you want the ball kind of set a little higher, set a little lower? Do you want it to the antenna or outside of the antenna? Things like that. Next is Kazuki. Very high stats in most categories, but some of these stats actually work against him, like for instance the bump stat damaging the style. But other than that, he is a libero slash setter with no real spiking capacity outside of serves, because why not give a libero a serve, I guess. Mastering this style, I'd say, takes two things: making sure you are controlling the bump so it doesn't go over, just like on most styles with high bump stats, but it becomes more apparent on this because it is a libero. This can be done by standing a bit farther back or turning your body, and being able to accurately dive is also pretty important on this style. It is a bit harder on keyboard and mouse to be able to accurately dive, since you only have WASD to kind of aim that dive instead of a actual like joystick. But making sure you master this is also pretty important. Although when you do master it, make sure not to spam dives, as receiving serves with a dive when you could have otherwise bumped it forward to put your team in better positioning is kind of a bad play. Like, I would rather you bump it forward and middle rather than like dive it back left, because then our options are a little bit limited from back there. Next is Sanju, a one trick when it comes to hitting, but does it insanely well, and definitely the most consistent solid hitter in the game while offering really nothing else when you take a peek at his base stats. He is super fun to play and feels great to spike on. He he could do cuts really well, glides really well, W tilt from farther back, S tilt when most others couldn't, and in general his tilts are just insanely good, which is oftentimes the most important thing for a spiker, and luckily that's what his ability is. It's all about his tilts. He pretty much has strength and W tilts, strength and S tilts, strength and side tilts, and his things curve just a little bit after he tilts on a spike. Getting better with him is really just getting better at spiking in general, since he is just the most pure spiker in the game. And thankfully, he's the best to help you get better at it. Next is Taicho. Very similar stats to Timeskip Kiyama with slight differences here and there, but where the real differences come into play is the set. His set, unlike TSK, doesn't stop mid-air, so it requires a bit more skill, and its arc is also different, requiring even more skill in my opinion, on the setter and spiker's part. But his set, when hit, adds power to the spiker's hits, allowing for some insanely strong hits. I would say for him, it's a similar skill gap to what comes with most setters, and it's getting kind of the height that you need to actually set the ball down, and it's more so even apparent on him, since his kind of arc differently. It's not as easy as Timeskip Kiyama's, I think. I don't know. Next is Kazana. This style is statistically very similar to TSH, but with a different ability. Almost like how Taicho is similar to TSK, but with a different ability while having similar stats. For Kazana's ability, it's pretty much a mini boom jump. It has some drawbacks, as it's super obvious when you're going to go for it, since you do like literally crouch to the ground, but it doesn't mean it can't work. Cuts are really good with him. Delays are pretty good with him. High sets are pretty good for him. Bump sets are solid for him. Really anything that gets the ball just super high. And you can also swap to just his regular jump for other just like normal hits. Now you do need to be wary about his S tilt, which is a bit stronger. It's like a Bokuso style S tilt where it's just way stronger than most other people's S tilts. And by stronger, it just goes out a lot more. So you do have to be careful when S tilting with him. And I also think you should have your base jump on when you're defending, and then flex between your base jump and your boom jump when you're on offense, depending on what you kind of need to do. Next is Mikage. This style is an okay hitter and absolutely shutdown blocker. He can't set or defender on the ground well due to his lack of stats in most of those areas like speed and spike, but honestly his block makes up for most of that and makes him one of the easiest styles to play due to your gameplay in most modes boiling down to jumping and blocking. And his ability is attached to that block. Just like Yogan, you charge his ability by doing things on the ground like ground setting, bumping, and diving, and when it's charged you have 3 touches with your ghost arms that act as a buffed block and extends your hitbox either way. Me personally, in modes like 2s and 3s, I kind of like to stay on the ground and wreck most of the time with him, unless I know I can get a block on someone, but for the most part I'll just stay on the ground and kind of just wreck, dive, stuff like that. I'll bump my serve over as well if I don't think I can get an ace through until I have my ghost arms, and then I'm just jumping on every single touch, to be honest, because it is so overpowered. Next are the twins. Definitely the best all-rounder in the game, can literally do everything but just half at a time, as it's effectively a godly setter and godly spiker in one that you can swap to during the match. The spiker having a shutdown block, old Sanji's tilt, and literally 0 speed, while the setter has an insane curve serve, max set, and crazy speed. Mastering this style mostly comes down to getting his serve down and learning different lineups. Next is Timeskip Okazu, a serve style that could also be classified as a setter due to his max stats in that category, but really he is a well-rounded serve style because he can sort of spike, really good serve, max speed, good bump, good set, literally just a do-all. And to use his serve, simply hit the box here at the end of his serve and boom, it will hit the enemy team and cause them to go flying back. Basically, you want to try to either 1 ace with him or 2 serve in a way that will force him to be in awkward positioning almost every single play. The biggest drawback to this character is when they kind of know how to wreck it really well, so that way it doesn't go super far back, or 2, when you're in modes with higher people, because in modes with higher people, 1, you're not going to get to your serve rotation quite as much. That's why he's kind of useless for modes that outside of 2s. 2, it's just easier for teams to wreck his like really strong serves in those when there's just more people on the court. Next is Jinko. This is a spiker similar to Sanju, but with a stronger serve in my opinion, although his serve stat is a little deceiving since it does feel like it goes to the ground a bit slower, but you can also add his ability to that serve, which is spin, or pretty much like a mini curve spike. What it does is when you side to side tilt, the ball will curve after the hit in that direction, and if you back tilt, you can get pretty wacky with this, like this boomerang tech, or being able to hit the back court every time on an S tilt, no matter the height or where the ball's at, which I think he might be the only style that can do that, which is kind of insane. And you can also kind of like mix tilts them, like back tilt with an A tilt or back tilt with a D tilt, you know, stuff like that. And since he is such a threat to hit at the backcourt, you can also sometimes just W tilt for free stuff if they back up too much. To get better at Jinko, I'd focus on getting good at this boomerang tech, especially. This is a pretty solid tech, and his cuts are also pretty nice since you can S tilt on the cut and get it to go in almost every time. You can also apply his pro controls onto a spike by jumping, holding set, and then spiking with the curve. What this will do is get the curve arc to be a lot more aggressive, since cutting the power is going to give it more time in the air to curve more. Just have overall a much more aggressive curve. I'll give you the ranking of them by position and then by mode, and I'm going to start with setters because a team with setter is almost always better than a team without a setter, barring it's not 2v2s. But one has to go to time skip Kiyamo in my opinion. The amount of spikes he opens up just by being on the team is insane. Almost every like comp team or really good team has him at the setter, and it's not just at the very highest level. He is dominant. He is insanely good at the lower levels too, since he is kind of brainless to use, and his set stops, floats, and then drops, giving ample time for even worse spikers to recover and get good spikes in. At 2, it's obviously Taicho. He is a very good setter as well and on par with TSK, and his sets give extra power, but this can also throw off spikers' muscle memory at times, as the increase in power changes how they would have to hit slightly, and he has less bailouts with his sets while being harder to use. So in my opinion, that's kind of how it is. He's a little bit harder to use, but when mastered, I would say he is about on par with TSK, and most of the difference between the two is just preference and what they bring to the offense, while being defensively pretty much identical. After this point, everyone else is just randoms with really nothing special to offer at the setter position. But at 3, we do have the twins. In my opinion, a really solid 2v2 setter. He has the serve and is an all-rounder, while also having a Sanju / TSH set with the Spiker twin, which some people prefer. So I think this style can actually set pretty well for 2v2s, given the versatility of his different sets. And at 4, we have TSO. He has a max set and a serve ability, and again, a really decent 2v2 setter. And at 5, we have Kasuki, the final seeker with a very high set stat. After this point, all of them are genuinely just dead even, really, when it comes to setting, and don't really do it better or worse than each other in any significant way. So I kind of think of these all as a tie. Next, I'll be ranking the spikers in Volleyball Legends. At 1, it's got to be TSH. He is dominant in any game mode at multiple positions while being defensively very sound. There's a reason he has a really high win rate. There's a reason he can play libero either side for hitters, and why his re-release was so hype. He is a monster in every mode at multiple positions and is usually the scariest hitter on a court. At 2, it's Sanju, largely due to him just being an insanely consistent, solid wing spiker. While not defensively as solid, he is slower and doesn't have the same like serve power. He is still a crazy hitter and can never go wrong with taking him, since he can like hit cuts and do things that no other person can. At 3 and a tie with 4, I actually have Hidari, and the only reason Hidari isn't over TSH and Sanju on this list is because I think TSH maintains being a better in 2v2s and most other modes, and much more flexible in every other game mode, where Hidari isn't nearly as flexible as these other two spikers, obviously due to needing the ball on his left side. So I think that sort of limits him and forces you to play slightly differently with him. And at 4, again with a tie with 3, is Jinko. And you can do some insanely wacky stuff with his spikes, and you definitely have to play his spikes a bit differently, but while still really good, nowhere near his prime. But again, there's still some really wacky techs you can do with Jinko. At 5, it's Kazana. Again, this is another one where you can do some cool stuff with the spikes, but just kind of so-so for hitting with really nice speed. He's got a few techs out there that's pretty good with him, but I wouldn't say better than any of these other hitters I've mentioned. At 6 is the twins. Pretty much when it comes to hitting, it's just Bakuri with the old Sanju tilt, which does actually help a lot with his hitting, and is primarily the reason why I put him here and above number 7, which is Mikage, who is literally nothing special at hitting. We're just out of hitters now, really. At 8, it's Yogan. I mean, it's Yogan. I don't know what you want me to say. He's an okay hitter for 2v2s, useless for probably any other game mode. When he does activate his rage, he can kind of act as a temporary like blocker, but I don't know why you just want to take the twins over Yogan. At 9 is Time Skip Okazu. He has a decent hitting stat for a setter, and you can sneak in actually a bunch of hits with him when you're playing setter, because he does have an above average spike for 4-1. At 10, it's Taicho. He just has a slightly higher spike than TSK, so I put him ahead. And at 11, it's Time Skip Camo. Again, he does not really have any hit, probably to balance out how just good of a setter he is. They didn't want to give him any kind of good hit. At 12 is Kasuki, not a hitter, and if he's lined up at libero, unlike a setter, he never really has an opening to score at that position, because like a setter can like sometimes sneak a spike in here or there from, you know, like just fake a set and hit the ball for a spike. If you have Kasuki at libero, he won't really ever be able to do that, because the spike power isn't strong enough to be able to hit from back there and score. I'm not going to spend too much time on best defenders, because typically they're all very close to each other defensively, and most of this is just based on good positioning of the individual player. But there are 2 very standout defenders that when you're on these styles, the team definitely can feel a defensive boost, with the best defender being far and away Mikage. He is extremely comp for 6s with a feeling I can almost must, and also 4v4s. He is extremely good for as well. And as a setter, half my gameplay when he is on the other team in those modes is trying to predict where he is going to try and set the other way, so that way he can't block the spiker. And there's no other style that instills that level of fear. Defensively, especially especially when he has activated his ghost arms. He is a nightmare to deal with. At 2, it's the twins, largely due to their versatility of how the style can defend and also having that same max block and probably being the best 2v2 defender. At 3, I have time skip Hinto, mostly due to his very fast speed and how good he is for the libero position, with almost every good team lining him up at libero for obvious reasons. Strong hitting capability, fast, and has a good bump that lets him control the Rex easily. So he can score from the backcourt, he can do like run-ups for like the stop sets, he has a controllable bump, he's fast to get around, he's the best for this spot. After this, I'd say they're all pretty much equals, with Kasuki being slightly ahead of the rest due to him not being a terrible pick for some 6v6 teams. Now for specific game modes. For 2v2 at the highest level, I still think it's TSH at 1. He is currently very meta for 2v2s and really has been since he came out. At 2, it's Sanju, consistent, solid hitter, and since dual hitters is kind of meta for 2v2s, the most consistent pure hitter was always going to be insanely high on this list, which is Sanju. At 3, the Mia twins, being the definition of an all-rounder and a serve that haunts people, he is in my opinion a lock for number 3, and maybe you could argue him up to 2 or 1, honestly. A really solid style that can do it all, sort of made in a factory to play 2v2s. At 4, I have Hidari. Needing the ball to be on his left side for his hard hits is sort of a curse and a blessing. Sort of gimmicky like Jinko, which is my next one on here. Being able to do some solid hits with him, but at the same time being sort of limited and not always consistent. And for that, I have him and Jinko tied again, kind of at this like upper mid-tier spikers. And like I said, Jinko at 5. Solid spiking style that's very similar to Sanju, but a bit less consistent in my opinion, with the upside of having some silly techs and lineups you can go for him. With that like boomerang tank you can do at Jinko that maybe you've seen and maybe you haven't. Next is Mikage. He is a solid shutdown block and honestly can just farm a lot of people at the block alone. I really did consider moving this style up, since I do think this style could almost be like a free pro rank. It's genuinely like a turn your brain off and just jump and block kind of style. Next, I time skip Okazu, a well-rounder with a fast serve and is fast as well. Can't really go wrong with that in 2v2s, but primarily why I put him a little bit farther down is because I think he is a bit worse than the twins. I think if you're going for that serve style / well-rounder, you're way better off going with the twins. Next, I have Kazana. And after Kazana, this is the rest of my list. The setters are so low mainly because it's just not super to run a setter in 2v2s, but you still can if you're locked in enough, and stuff like 2 Taichos or a TSK and TSH that are communicating, stuff like that can be really, really good. I just put them so low because you do need a way higher level of communication and kind of like just locked in that I think a lot of people don't really have. With 3v3s and up, a team with a setter will pretty much always be better than a team without a setter. So for that, I'm going to give the number 1 to I think the best setter, which is TSK. At 2 is TSH. At 3 is Sanju. At 4 is Hidari. At 5 is Taicho. At 6 is the Mia twins. At 7 is Mikage. At 8 is Jinko. At 9 is time skip Okazu. At 10 is Kazana. At 11 is Kasuki. And at 12 is Yogan. And the meta 3v3 team is probably TSK, TSH at the right side, and Hidari at opposite. But I think you can swap out Hidari with Sanju or swap Hidari on the right side as well, depending on how you want to hit, knowing that you need the ball to be on the left side of Hidari for him to get that hard hit. So if you want to like hit it early while the ball's coming towards you from the setter, maybe you want to put him on the right side. And you can also swap TSK with Taicho depending on how you like to play. Again, you can swap a lot of these around, but I definitely think a combination of TSK / Taicho, TSH, and then Hidari / Sanju is kind of the best lineup for 3v3s you can do. And most of this will sort of stay true in 4v4s as well. For 4v4s, it's going to look fairly similar to 3v3s with some changes, primarily serve styles moving lower and lower, obviously with the more and more people, and Mikage moving up, as well as Kasuki coming up just a little bit too. At 1, TSK. At 2, TSH. At 3, Sanju. At 4, Hidari. At 5, Mikage. At 6, Jinko. At 7, Taicho. At 8, Mia twins. At 9, Kazana. At 10, time skip Okazu. At 11, Kasuki. And at 12, Yogan. For the best 4v4 stacks, it's probably TSK at setter, TSH at libero, Hidari at opposite or right side as well, and then another TSH at right side hitter, or Sanju at right side hitter or opposite. Honestly, you can kind of swap them around a little bit, but I definitely think a TSK, 2 TSHs, and then Hidari or Sanju is kind of the best thing you can go with. You can also kind of like mix in a Jinko or something silly here and there. You know, there are some techs with him, but broadly, I think that would probably give you your best chance. For 6v6, dual styles or serve styles become almost completely obsolete and just bad to pick. At 1 is TSK, and the only reason I put him at 1 and not Mikage at 1 is because you still need a setter. But at 2 and a very close to is Mikage. He is so dominant when you start going up, having more and more people on the court. Running 2 Mikages is like a nightmare lineup for the enemy team. At 3 is TSH because, again, he's really good for libero. He's really good for both of the wings. Really solid. At 4 is Sanju. At 5 is Hidari. At 6 is Jinko. At 7 is Taicho. At 8 are the Mia twins. And the reason why the Mia twins do still stay a little bit higher is because they also can play blocker here too. At 9 is Kasuki, because Kasuki now could play libero if you wanted him to. At 10 is Kazana. At 11 is Time Skip Okazu. And at 12 is Yogan. The best 6v6 stack is 2 Mikages placed at either wing and then a backblock setter in middle, who, with this level of people in the court, really has to be Time Skip Kiyama at this point. And for the other 4 positions, you want TSH or libero, but if you don't have him, you can run Kasuki there as well in this mode there instead, but TSH is preferable, and then a mixture of Jinkos, Sanus, TSHs, stuff like that to fill out the rest of the team should be all right. But really, I think it comes down to like Mikages being the difference in this mode. He is very, very good for this mode.